Small-scale fishermen across South Africa have taken to the harbours in peaceful protest, demanding an overhaul of the Fishing Rights Allocation Process, or FRAP, which they say favours large commercial operators. From False Bay to St Helena Bay, fishermen are calling for policy reform, recognition of traditional knowledge and an end to economic marginalisation. At the heart of their struggle, a fight for livelihood, dignity and rightful access to the ocean that has sustained their communities for many, many years. Joining us now from Cape Town is Pedro Garcia, coordinator of the Fishers Movement for Change. Pedro, appreciate your time this afternoon. Let's start with the heart of the matter. What has sparked the decision to protest now, and what specific outcomes are you hoping to achieve?
Hugo, thank you so much for the opportunity, first of all. Yes, this has started almost 2 decades ago, when the introduction or the development of the small-scale fisheries policy started to take place. That was in 2005, 2006, when the Equality Court ruled that the fishing rights allocation processes were not fair, and that marginalised and small-scale fishers had been unfairly excluded from the processes. Since then, there was a process of designing and developing a small-scale fisheries policy, which was introduced in 2016 when the regulations were promulgated. The problem at the moment is that the small-scale fishing cooperatives, which has been established across the country, are not successful, not by a long stretch, and that is a huge problem. We have in the Northern Cape, we have 2 cooperatives, Western Cape 62, Eastern Cape, there's now, I think, a 72 and about 45 in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, if we can show that at least 5 or 10% of those cooperatives are successful, then that is a huge number. So these cooperatives are failing dismally. They're not getting the necessary support. One of the biggest problems with the cooperatives is that when it was introduced, the cooperative was the single form of ownership. So there already our people's right to association was breached. In any other of the fishing sectors, you can apply either as an individual, you can apply as a company, you can apply whatever legal form of ownership there is, you could use. But in the small-scale fishing sector, the only form of ownership that was foisted on our people was cooperatives. There was no choice. And we feel that
what would the,
in itself...
Pedro, what would the alternatives be to the co-op, firstly? And secondly, just walk us through why they've failed. Why aren't these cooperatives succeeding?
Well, first and foremost, the cooperative, the viability of the cooperative is based on the rights that are allocated to it. And if those rights are insufficient, then there is no economic viability. In actual fact, it further impoverishes the people who are now recognized as small-scale fishers. Then there's also the exclusion of a huge number of fishers across the country. Once the registration process stopped, people could only get into the cooperative 2 years after. But these are people who are heavily dependent upon the resources for their livelihoods. One of the other critical issues, of course, is the failure of policy to recognize the indigenous people in our country, their intangible cultural heritage. We mentioned this on several occasions to the department, and we said to them, you know, we need to recognize this. And our people, or the indigenous groups, were excluded on the basis that they are not included in the Marine Living Resources Act. Now, that's a bit disingenuous, because if you look at the Constitution, our Constitution provides and protects the cultural heritage, but the Marine Living Resources Act doesn't. So there's a disjuncture, a complete disconnect between the law.
Now, where there also seems to be a disconnect is with the Minister George, Minister of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries. Now, he's labelled your protest as disruptive, right? Now, what is your response to this characterization?
Look, Minister George has painted himself into a corner here, and I hope he's going to be bold and courageous enough to acknowledge the fact that for some reason or other, he seems to think that our people are not allowed to protest. That is grossly disingenuous, to say the least. The press release further marginalizes, criminalizes our people. The way it has been framed, it is as though our people are going to go out there, our officials are going to go out there and cause complete havoc. I think that the minister is completely misinformed, because it wasn't just St Helena Bay. On the same day, we had protests in Port Nolloth, Langebaan, Hart Bay, Kalk Bay, Mossel Bay, Jeffreys Bay, and then we also had online support. And in each case, our people went to the necessary authorities to get the necessary authorization for these events to take place, and everything went off peacefully. Now, since when in our country can you not protest, or protesting becomes unacceptable when it's guaranteed under the Constitution? I think the minister really needs to come to the table. When we started this initiative with the Fishers Movement for Change, we ensured that everything was non-confrontational. We ensured that it was cordial. We put everything, we followed every rule in the book to get his attention. He has not engaged once with the small-scale fishers on a small-scale fishing basis. The fact that he has gone to the harbours, he had gone there to visit the harbour user committees. These are not the small-scale fishers. These are not the people who are marginalized. These are not the families who are going without food at night. And we have a minister who has now painted himself in a corner, because now he's got to get out of that corner and come to us and be bold and be courageous and take the necessary step and say, I've done something wrong here, I need to remedy it, because we are his responsibility. But he seems to be shying away from that responsibility. And this cannot be.
Well,
The
Pedro,
Marine Living Resources Act, as it stands today, should have been reviewed and amended in 2022 already. And that Marine Living Resources Act now protects the privileged, because more than 80% of the resources, the marine resources in this country, resides with the larger companies. So we can do nothing until the fishing rights allocation processes restarts again.
Pedro,
it's an untenable situation for our people.
That's obviously a conversation we're going to have to continue following. I'm going to thank you for your time, coordinator of the Fishers Movement for Change, Pedro Garcia, and taking a dig at the Minister of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries.